What is up? Welcome back to the Vendetta Sports Media 2024-2025 NBA season previews. My name is Matt Hanifan. I'm with Jerry Walker. Today we're going to be going over the Indiana Pacers. They didn't almost win the Eastern Conference Finals, but they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Indiana Pacers who went 47-35 last year. But first, Jerry, what's going on, man?
Not much, Matt. Ready to get talking basketball. Excited. Had a day off from work, so that's always nice as well. But no, ready for the NBA season to come. So close. A few more weeks to go, but I'm just excited we have this to talk about. The Indiana Pacers. It was all good up until they came across Boston, like you said. And as Boston did to most teams, beat the living hell out of them, swept them in 4. But it wasn't that one-sided, I will say. I will give Indiana their credit. They lost a couple of the games by 3 or 5 points. They were only really blown out in game 2, and that's all you can ask. Is at least they made the games competitive to an extent. So,
yeah, they were without Tyrese for a good portion of that series. Joe Mazzulla even said that was their toughest series of the 4 that they had, including the NBA Finals against Dallas. But we're not here to talk about Joe Mazzulla. We're here to talk about the Indiana Pacers. What'd you think about their season last year? Again, they won 47-35. They were the league's best defense, 7th worst, or league's best offense, 7th worst defense. They traded for Pascal Siakam midseason. They were able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals after beating the Knicks in 7 games. What do you think about their season overall, and where do you see them building upon heading into this next season?
So the first half of the season, I was very they're good. It doesn't seem like they're anything crazy. I mean, they went through until they traded for Siakam, they were 3 games over 500, I want to say, which isn't anything crazy by any means in the Eastern Conference. When you see teams like Boston and Milwaukee who are winning like on a 600 to 700% or 0.700 scale win percentage, I think the Pascal Siakam trade was massive. Bruce Brown signing there and then going. He didn't live up to it, and I've said it before with players leaving the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. When you have the best player in the world around you, everyone around you is better. And I think Indiana realized that halfway through that Bruce Brown was better, not because he's not a bad player, but he was better because he had these star players around him. And this was a little different at Indiana at the time. But as soon as Siakam came in, you could sense that little bit of a shift in motion, and it really kind of took off from there. I really enjoyed what they did. They came out this offseason as well, re-signed him, re-signed Obi Toppin, re-signed James Johnson, TJ McDowell. I'm excited for this year because we get a full year of Tyrese Haliburton, Pascal Siakam. I always liked Miles Turner because he's just a big defensive guy in the middle who can dominate at times. But I'm excited to see a full year of this Indiana Pacers team that we saw the second half of last season.
So, I mean, I did look at it before we got on here. They went 20-16 in game. This is just regular season, by the way.
Okay.
But they went 20-16 in games where Siakam and Haliburton both played. I know, again, a portion of that was Haliburton was banged up the second half of the season. I think that he was one of the players where the 65-game minimum for awards really did kind of like he wanted that 65-game minimum. And so he played through injuries, and I think that compromised his ability a little bit late in the season before the postseason. And so like I think that could be a little bit misleading. I mean, that's still above 500. That's still a solid 36-game sample that you're working with there. But when Tyrese is on the floor, when Siakam is on the floor, I think they both have really good synergy together. In addition to Miles Turner, I thought T.J. McConnell and Andrew Nembhard, especially after Tyrese went down in the postseason last year in the Knicks series and then in the Boston series, like he was really, 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 really good. Or they were really, really, really good, both of them. And so I think you get both of those guys back on pretty team-friendly deals. Obviously, you re-sign Siakam. You pretty much bring back a similar team that you did last year for the most part. I mean, they did lose Jalen Smith, who really he kind of in the rotation, not really. Doug McDermott, Doug McBuckets, as he is informally called, but like they didn't lose too much they did add, a few guys in the draft that I like. Johnny Furphy in the second round was a guy that I wasn't necessarily as high on as like a mid-first round guy, but a guy they got in the second round who, was pretty fearless at Kansas, good three-point shooter, solid positional defender, got better playing through contact toward later in the season. Tristan Newton, who I don't know how much time Tristan Newton's going to spend with the NBA team as much as he will the G League team, but he's another guy who he was UConn's best distributor, probably outside of Stephon Castle. And then Enrique Freeman, who was one of the more productive players last year out of Akron. And they got all those guys in the second round. They added James Wiseman, who, again, if you're throwing darts like James Wiseman, I mean, he's been with a few different organizations already. He's still young and he's raw, and I still think there is something there with him. I don't know how much of a role he's going to necessarily play, but if you're looking for a Jalen Smith replacement, you're just looking to throw darts for upside. He could be a guy that I think Rick Carlisle gets his hands on and impacts their rotation at some point during the season. And then they also added Colt Swider from my beloved Heat, just lights out shooter.
Yeah,
doesn't really do much else, but he can definitely put the ball in the bucket. And the Pacers were a team last year that they were the league's best or second best offense, but they weren't really a team that shot a lot of threes. Like, they were middle of the pack in three-point attempts per 100 possessions. They were ninth in three-point percentage, but they were still able to get looks because how good they were in transition and how fast they were in the half court, because that was a team that played with a lot of pace. And when they were able to play with a lot of pace, whether they were shooting threes or not, they were getting open looks. And that's all you can really ask for in an offense like that. So I am very intrigued just by all of that.
And I think to that point of you're talking about the transition game, that's what made him dangerous. Was you could have any of the five starters, Miles Turner at times being the odd man left out maybe, but any of them could get the ball and take it up court. Obi Toppin was high flying at times with them last season. Balls moving around quick. Not saying it was Lob City vibes, but they were kind of getting going and would take advantage of the easy open man, and he'd flush it down at the end of the other end. Two guys I am interested to see how they do again this year is if James Wiseman does get minutes, which I think he could be a solid fill in the minutes when you need Miles Turner on the bench. But Benedict Mathurin, because he had a pretty solid rookie year. I think he played 70-something games, averaged 16 and change. Fell off a little bit last year. I think there was some injury issue because he only played 58 games, averaged 14 and a half. So he's a little bit of a down year compared to his rookie season.
See how he tore his labrum. Okay. Tore his labrum, I think March, somewhere around.
Right. So I'm assuming he'll be healthy for when we come back here, but I want to see how he does. One, with the injury, and two, it was a little bit of a slower year for him, mostly because of that, and see how he recovers and comes back. Because if he's playing the way he can, and we know he can, that just adds even more depth off of this bench. And that's one of my favorite things. I talk about it on most of these teams is the bench aspect, because as we've talked about before, you need to have obviously a solid starting five in the playoffs to make a title run, but you also need guys to step in when the starters are tired or not playing well. You need guys to fill in those minutes. And I think the Indiana Pacers have created a very, very good team to do that on the bench.
No, I'm completely with you. Mathurin was my X factor.
Yeah.
Jumping ship here, but we're jumping ahead. Like he was my X factor. It was for that reason. And I think he could definitely be a guy. Like, I think he wants to prove that he can be a reliable rotation player and reliable, whether he starts or come off the bench, like just a reliable player for this team. And like we've absolutely seen glimpses of it. And like, again, he's another guy where it's like, if he gets on a heater, it just adds complications for the defense and everyone else on the floor. It opens up everyone else just because, like, you have Tyrese Haliburton, you have Pascal Siakam, you have all these different threats. You have Miles Turner, who can definitely space the floor. And so when those three guys specifically are on the floor, in addition to Mathurin, like Mathurin's a guy who can go one-on-one. He can cook in that space. And he's shown that, he can get to the rim. He's not. Sometimes he takes some inefficient shots, but that's just the Ben Mathurin experience. And like sometimes he'll knock them down. And so for him specifically, like I am very high on his skill set and his capability, and I do think he will be a good NBA rotation player. And I think this is definitely the year where he can prove that, even though you do add Siakam into the mold. And I don't know how many games they played together last year, but I don't think Mathurin had too much of a role in those games. Maybe he did. Maybe I'm just wrong. But he is definitely someone that I'm looking out for this team this season.
Yeah. Along with Mathurin, I guess that goes into kind of my other X factors, just how well does everyone gel together? Does this first full year of Siakam and Haliburton and Miles Turner, does it gel together? Or is there something that chemistry issues? That's kind of my other concern, but I don't think it'll be an issue. I'm very high on this Indiana Pacers team this season. It's going to be tough considering the Eastern Conference is very much top heavy. I don't know how Philadelphia is going to be. I would assume the Knicks are going to be just as good as last year. You have the Celtics, the Bucks. You could throw the Pacers, I think, right on that fringe of being part of that top pack or top tier and that like second, third tier, somewhere in there. I think they could be part of any of those.
Yeah, I have Boston right now in a tier by itself.
Yeah. That makes sense. Boston.
And then New York, like whether you like New York, Milwaukee, if you want to throw Orlando in there, I think they're kind of in that bunch for the second. And then I think Indiana is like in between that as well. I think they can be a team that is in that second tier if Boston's by itself, or they can be a team in that third tier. I don't think like they're in my head they're kind of in a similar tier to Cleveland. I think I have Philly a peg lower than most people probably do. But I do think they're in that kind of conversation with them, with Cleveland. Again, however you feel about the Magic, they may be in that 2-3 range as well. You can maybe make the case for Miami, given how injured they were last year. Like there's plenty of teams in that in between mix that you can probably put in the second or third tier if you want to break it up even more, you can. But that's kind of where my head's at. And so I think I don't know where you have them in terms of seeding. I have them as a 6 seed right now.
That's exactly where I have them. I think 5 or 6, kind of just depending on how Cleveland and Orlando look this season, and Philadelphia as well.
Yeah.
So I think
that's kind of where I have them right now. And like again, just like the middle of the West, the middle of the East gives me just as much headaches because it's just like there's so much variance. And like last year, it was all separate, like between New York and I want to say it was like New York and Miami. Miami, by the way, it was 8 seed. It was like 3 games or 4 games. Like, it was so close.
4 games between the 2 and the 8 seed at the end of last season.
Yeah, there's so much, and obviously the bottom of the East is so unbelievably bad, and so is the bottom of the West with Portland. Like these are perfect opportunities for some of these teams, especially in the East, to stack up wins. I know it's only a few games a season, but they're games nonetheless. And so I think it makes it all the more interesting. Like for Boston, like I just think they're the best team in the league.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say otherwise when they go out and dominate everybody last year. They won the East. We talked about how close the East was from 2 to 8. That's because Boston was 14 games up.
Yeah.
On the 2 seed. But I don't know if Indiana can catch them, but I think that's a great confidence booster going ahead. And for this season, especially knowing that you went and gave them your all, were out without arguably your best player for some of that. Still went toe to toe, and the coach at the end said, after the away opposing coach says, "Hey, this was by far our toughest match of the whole playoffs." That's a big thing for them going forward, and I could see them making a little run together again. I don't think they'll win the East, but I could see them definitely winning a playoff series, maybe even 2. So,
me too. Just tighten up the defense and tighten up the rebound. I guess is my two biggest things. Like they were one of the worst teams in the league in terms of rebounding percentage.
Which
They
is
were
crazy considering you have Siakam, Miles Turner. Obi Toppin's not a huge guy, but he's athletic, so I'd expect him to grab more rebounds. It just seems weird that they have all these guys who are typically in the past have been rebounders, but not at the moment.
they want to get out in transition.
Yeah, that's
you're sacrificing your rebounding by trying to get 2-3 guys out in transition. And they're not a good offensive rebounding team, really, because they're a team that spaces the floor, and like Miles Turner is a guy that doesn't hang around the 3-point line exclusively. He's gotten better in the post over the last few years, but they're just not a great offensive rebounding team, and they prioritize getting back. But they're another team who they're just not a great they're not a great defensive rebounding team. And I think in part of that is just because they want to get out and go in transition, and that there's an inherent problem to that. And they allow a lot of like looks around the rim and stuff like that. And, if teams like to clean that stuff up,
which again
get second chance opportunities. And so, yeah, it is a problem. It is a struggle for them. And that's something that they do need to clean up if they really want to get over the top, is defense and rebounding. Those are two very, very, very important things if you want to win a title. Again, I'm with you. I don't think this team wins the title. But.
No. If they made the finals, I would think it could be very much like the Eastern Conference Finals this year, where they come up against someone after some miracle run and just get smacked about and sent home in 4. Don't think it's realistic that they'll make it, but I don't know. I'm expecting a good season from them. Should be a fun season, so it's all kind of I have to say for it.
I'm interested. I think my final thought is I'm very interested by the Siakam element of this.
Yeah.
And how he does fit in over a full season. I do think he's like a very good player who can absolutely fit in, but like, what does it look like for a full 82 game season? And how, because this is like outside of TJ McConnell, and like this is a pretty young team. They're young and hungry. And so like, how does all of this develop over an 82 game season? I am very fascinated by that.
And I think we'll find out relatively quickly what kind of team this is, because if you look at their first 5 games in October, you're away to Detroit. I don't think Detroit's going to be very good once again. But then it's at the Knicks, home to the Sixers, at Orlando, and home to Boston. You play
a 5 games, or that's a tough 4-game slate.
Yeah, so I think that could very well benefit the Pacers in the long run of just, okay, everyone's pretty much healthy right now. I know it's early season, it's hard to take stuff down the road because teams change, players change. But having that 4-game run early, I think could benefit them down in the long run.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. Do you have any additional final thoughts before we close this?
Nope, that is it.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please like and subscribe. Check out all of our video previews, vendettasportsmedia.com, all of our video previews here on the YouTube channel, the Vendetta Sports Media YouTube page. Please go check out the podcast network, all of the stuff that's been going on there. NBA, NHL, UFC, MLB, NFL, like all the stuff, all college football, trainers, draft notes, all the stuff that you're seeking, that you're wanting, whether it's NBA related or not. Please go check it out at vendettasportsmedia.com. Be sure to tell all of your friends. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Have a good one. See you guys next time.